The first time Lena told me she was pregnant, the room felt smaller than it was. We were standing in her kitchen. It was late. The kind of late where the city outside her windows goes quiet and even your own thoughts sound louder than they should. She was still in her work clothes. Black slacks, white blouse, everything pressed and sharp. Lena Whitmore always looked like she belonged at the head of a long table. But that night her hands were shaking. She held up the test without saying anything. 2 pink lines, clear as day. I remember staring at it longer than I should have. My mind didn't go to romance or joy or even fear. It went to my son. Jake had been asleep at my sister's house that night, 5 years old. Still leaving the bathroom light on because he didn't like the dark. Still asking questions about his mom that I didn't always know how to answer. Emma had been gone 3 years. 3 years of learning how to pack school lunches and braid feelings into bedtime stories. 3 years of building a life that was small but steady. Just me and Jake. I'd worked hard to keep it that way. Quiet, predictable, safe. "You're sure?" I asked Lena. My voice sounded calm. It surprised me. "I took 3, she said, all positive." She didn't cry. She didn't fall apart. But there was something in her eyes I had never seen before. Not fear of scandal. Fear of something softer. "It's mine," I said before I could stop myself. "Right?" The question hung between us, ugly and heavy. I hated that I'd asked it. Lena's jaw tightened. Not angry, just wounded. "Close the door, Daniel." I turned and pushed it shut. The click echoed in the quiet kitchen. When I faced her again, she had set the test down on the marble counter like it was something fragile. "There hasn't been anyone else," she said quietly. "Not in over a year." The confirmation should have felt like relief. Instead, it felt like responsibility. The same weight I felt the day Emma's doctor told me there was nothing more they could do. The same weight I felt when Jake asked why heaven needed his mommy more than he did. Responsibility doesn't ask if you're ready, it just shows up. "How far along?" I asked. 6 weeks, maybe 7. She wrapped her arms around herself then. Not the executive. Not the woman who ran meetings with men twice her age. Just Lena, and I saw something that shifted everything. She was scared. "I don't know what to do," she admitted. That honesty did something to me. I stepped closer. "We'll figure it out," I said, "one step at a time." She looked at me then, really looked at me. "Are you going to walk away?" she asked. I thought about Jake. About the night Emma died. About how empty the house felt when it was just me and a toddler who didn't understand loss. "No," I said, "I don't walk away." Outside, a siren passed somewhere far below her building. Inside, something much quieter began. Not joy, not yet, but the beginning of a decision that would change everything, and I didn't know then just how much it would cost us to keep it. The next morning, I drove to pick up Jake with a heaviness in my chest that coffee couldn't fix. He ran toward me outside my sister Sarah's house, backpack bouncing, curls a mess from sleep. He didn't know anything had changed. To him, the world was still simple. "Daddy, I built the biggest spaceship ever," he said, grabbing my hand. "That so?" I smiled, bending to kiss the top of his head. "Does it fly?" "Only if you believe it does." I swallowed. I used to believe life worked like that too. Back at our apartment, I made pancakes while Jake explained every detail of his invention. I nodded in the right places, laughed when I was supposed to. But my mind kept drifting back to Lena standing in that quiet kitchen. Pregnant, with my child. After Emma died, I promised myself I would never let my life spin out of control again. No chaos. No risks that could hurt Jake. And now here I was, bringing a storm to his doorstep. That night after Jake fell asleep, I sat alone at the kitchen table and stared at my phone. Lena had texted earlier. "Doctor appointment Monday, 2 p.m. Can you come?" I typed back one word. Yes. Because whether I was ready or not, this wasn't just her story. It was ours. Monday came faster than I wanted. I dropped Jake at preschool and drove downtown, rehearsing calm in my head like a closing argument. Lena was already in the waiting room when I arrived. No power suit this time, just jeans and a soft sweater. She looked smaller somehow. "Hi," she said. "Hi." We sat side by side, not touching. Around us were couples holding hands, whispering, smiling nervously. We didn't look like them. When the nurse called her name, Lena's hand found mine without thinking. She squeezed once, hard, then let go. The exam room was dim when the ultrasound began. I'd been here before. I remembered the first time Emma and I heard Jake's heartbeat. The way she cried and laughed at the same time. This time felt different, heavier. The screen flickered. Then a sound filled the room. Fast, steady, alive. Lena inhaled sharply. I felt it in my chest before I felt it in my mind. That wasn't a mistake. That wasn't a rumor. That was a heartbeat. There, the doctor said gently. 7 weeks. Everything looks healthy. Lena's fingers wrapped around my wrist. Not elegant, not controlled. Just human. Tears slid down her cheeks, and I didn't even realize I was crying too until I tasted salt. In that moment, something shifted inside me. This wasn't about scandal or careers or what people would say. This was a child. My child. When the doctor left us alone, Lena stared at the screen like she was memorizing it. I didn't expect it to feel real, she whispered. I thought I could think my way through it. You can't think your way through a heartbeat, I said. She let out a shaky breath. I'm scared, Daniel. I know. No, she shook her head. I'm really scared. I looked at that small shape on the screen and felt the old fear rising. The fear of losing everything again, of loving something and having it taken away. But underneath that fear was something else. Resolve. You won't do this alone, I said. And for the first time since that night in her kitchen, Lena didn't look like she was bracing for impact. She looked like she might actually believe me. We walked out of that clinic quieter than we'd gone in. The world outside kept moving. Cars passing, people rushing, someone laughing into a phone. It felt strange that nothing looked different when everything inside me had shifted. In the parking garage, Lena leaned back against her car and closed her eyes. I didn't think I wanted this, she said softly. I've spent 15 years building my career. I told myself children would only complicate things. And now? I asked. She opened her eyes and looked at me in a way that didn't feel guarded anymore. Now I don't know how I could pretend that heartbeat didn't matter. Neither did I. On the drive to pick up Jake, my hands felt tighter on the steering wheel. I kept replaying the sound in my head. Fast, steady, alive. Jake ran toward me when I got to preschool, waving a piece of paper above his head. Daddy, I drew our family. He shoved the crayon drawing into my hands before I could even kneel down. It was the two of us holding hands. Big smiles, a bright yellow sun overhead. That's us, I asked. Yeah, he said proudly. It's just us. That's our team. Just us. The words hit deeper than he meant them to. That night, after bath time and stories, I sat beside his bed a little longer than usual. He was half asleep when he looked up at me. You're thinking too loud again, he mumbled. I smiled faintly. Am I? Yeah, your forehead does that wrinkle thing. I smoothed my face and brushed his curls back. Everything okay, Daddy? There it was, the question that mattered. Yeah, I said. And this time I meant it in a different way. Everything's changing a little, but we're going to be okay. He accepted that. Kids do. They trust first and ask questions later. After he drifted off, I went into the kitchen and called Lena. She answered on the first ring. I keep hearing it, she said before I could speak. The heartbeat? Yes. We were quiet for a moment. I have to tell you something, she continued. Victor has been asking questions about us, about why we've had so many late meetings. A slow heat rose in my chest. He doesn't know. Not yet, but he suspects something. Corporate politics. I understood enough to know how ugly it could get. Lena was respected, but she was also watched. A woman at the top always is. We'll be careful, I said. We already were. There was no panic in her voice, just calculation. Daniel, if this costs you your job. It won't, I cut in gently. And if it does, we'll figure that out too. Silence again, softer this time. You're different than I thought you were, she said. How? I expected you to pull away, to treat this like damage control. I looked toward Jake's bedroom door down the hall. I've already buried one life, I said quietly. I'm not running from another. On the other end of the line, I heard her breathe in slowly. Okay, she whispered. Not dramatic, not romantic, just okay. And somehow, that felt like the beginning of something steadier than either of us had planned. The weeks after that appointment moved in two directions at once. At home, life felt almost the same. I packed Jake's lunches. We argued about socks that didn't feel right. We built Lego towers that never quite stood straight. But underneath it all, I carried the sound of that heartbeat like a secret. At work, things were different. Not obvious, not loud, just different. Victor Lang started appearing more often in meetings Lena and I attended. He asked questions that had nothing to do with the topic at hand. He smiled too long, watched too closely. One afternoon, he stopped me in the hallway. Reed, he said, adjusting his cufflinks. You and Lena seem Aligned lately. We work well together, I replied evenly. He tilted his head. Be careful. Ambition has a way of burning people who stand too close to it. It wasn't advice. It was a warning. That evening, Lena texted me. He's circling, I can feel it. I drove to her place after Jake fell asleep at Sarah's house. When she opened the door, she didn't look like the woman who commanded boardrooms. She looked tired. He made a comment today, she said as I stepped inside, about distractions affecting leadership performance. Does he know? I don't think so, but he's digging. She walked to the kitchen, the same place where this all started. I can't lose everything I've built, she said quietly. Not now. I understood that fear. I'd rebuilt my life once already. The thought of tearing it down again made my chest tight. We'll get ahead of it, I said. When the time is right, we tell them. On our terms. She leaned against the counter and looked at me. You'd risk your job for this? For our child? I shook my head. That's not even a question. Her expression shifted then. Something softer, something uncertain. I don't know how to do this, she admitted. The personal part. I've always kept work clean, efficient, safe. Nothing about this is efficient, I said with a small smile. But that doesn't mean it's wrong. For a moment, we just stood there. Then she surprised me. She stepped closer, not for urgency, not for distraction, just to rest her forehead lightly against my chest. I'm scared, she whispered. I wrapped my arms around her carefully, aware of the life growing between us. So am I said. The truth didn't weaken us, it steadied us. Outside her windows, the city lights flickered. Inside, for the first time, it didn't feel like we were bracing for disaster. It felt like we were choosing something. And that choice was going to cost us more than either of us realized. The cost came faster than we expected. It was a Tuesday morning when my security badge stopped working. I stood at the elevator, swiping it twice before I realized the small red light wasn't a glitch. 2 men in suits stepped up beside me. Mr. Reed, we need you to come with us. I knew that tone, calm, polite, final. They didn't take me to my office. They took me to a small conference room with beige walls and a long table that had seen more endings than beginnings. A woman from Human Resources sat across from me. There have been allegations, she began carefully, of an inappropriate relationship with a senior executive. I didn't ask who. I didn't have to. We take these matters seriously, she continued. Pending investigation, you are being placed on administrative leave, effective immediately. Administrative leave, a clean phrase for something ugly. My access was revoked, my email suspended, my name quietly erased before lunchtime. They handed me a cardboard box. 3 years of my life fit inside it. Photos of Jake. A coffee mug from Sarah. A stack of case notes I'd worked on late into the night. As I walked past my colleagues with that box in my arms, I felt smaller than I had in a long time. Outside, the sun was shining. It felt cruel. My phone buzzed before I even reached my car. Lena. I just heard, she said, her voice tight. Daniel, I'm so sorry. It's not your fault. It is, this is Victor. I know. There was silence between us. I'm going to fight this, she said. No. What? You're pregnant. You need that job, health insurance, stability. And what about you? I'll figure it out. The words came easier than the truth behind them. Because when I got home and Jake ran into my arms asking why I was early, I felt the weight of it. How do you tell a 5-year-old that grown men with power can decide your future before you get a chance to speak? Work trouble, I told him gently that evening when he asked. Like when I got in trouble for talking in class? Something like that. He thought about that for a moment. But you didn't do anything bad, right? I looked at him, really looked at him. No, I said quietly, I didn't. That night, after he fell asleep, I sat alone at the kitchen table staring at job listings I wasn't ready to apply for. 3 months of savings, a baby on the way, and a reputation that had just been dragged through quiet corporate mud. My phone buzzed again, a message from an unknown number. This is what happens when people forget their place. I didn't need a signature to know who sent it. I deleted it. Then I called Lena. We're not letting him win, she said before I could speak. I leaned back in my chair, exhausted in a way that had nothing to do with sleep. I don't want revenge, I said. I want my family safe. And for the first time since Emma died, I felt the old fear creeping back in, the fear of losing everything again. The final meeting was scheduled for Friday afternoon. I didn't need anyone to tell me what that meant. Companies don't schedule final meetings to apologize. I dropped Jake at preschool that morning and held him a second longer than usual when he hugged me goodbye. Don't forget, he said, we're building the big spaceship tonight. I won't forget, I promised. I wasn't sure what else I might be losing by the end of the day, but I wasn't losing that. At 11 o'clock, Lena called. "I've asked for time with the board," she said. "Lena, I'm not asking permission, Daniel, I'm telling you." Her voice was steady, but I could hear what sat underneath it. Fear, and something stronger. Resolve. By 1:30, I was sitting in that same beige conference room again. Only this time there were more people, lawyers, a senior partner, the head of HR, and Lena. She walked in last. Black suit, shoulders straight, one hand resting lightly on the curve of her stomach. She didn't look at me at first. She addressed the room. "There has been a mistake," she said calmly, "and I'm here to correct it." What followed didn't feel dramatic. It felt precise. Lena laid out timelines, emails, dates, the pattern of Victor's access to internal systems, the way he'd requested my review history before the suspension was even processed. The IT director confirmed it. He'd accessed information he wasn't authorized to see. He'd pushed HR before any formal complaint existed. He hadn't just suspected, he'd orchestrated. The room shifted. You can feel it when power changes direction. It gets quieter, more careful. The senior partner finally spoke. "Mr. Reed, your suspension is lifted effective immediately." The words hung in the air. "Mr. Lang's employment is terminated pending further investigation." No applause, no drama. Just the steady correction of something ugly. When the meeting ended, Lena stepped into the hallway first. Her shoulders dropped the moment the door closed behind her. "I almost didn't do it," she admitted softly. "Why?" "Because it would have been easier to protect myself." I stepped closer. "But you didn't." She looked up at me, eyes shining. "I'm tired of being strong alone." That sentence did something deeper than the reinstatement ever could. It wasn't just about my job anymore. It was about us choosing each other when it would have been simpler not to. Later that evening, I picked up Jake and we built that big Lego spaceship on the living room floor. Halfway through, he looked at me. "You're smiling again," he said. "Am I?" "Yeah, the wrinkle thing's gone." I laughed quietly. Upstairs, my phone buzzed. A message from Lena. "We survived this one." I looked around at the small apartment that had once felt like the whole world. At my son carefully pressing blocks together. At the future we hadn't planned, but were learning to stand inside. "Yes," I typed back. "We did." And for the first time since that night in her kitchen, the fear wasn't leading the story anymore. Hope was. Going public was Lena's idea. "If we hide," she said one evening at our kitchen table, "it'll always feel like something we're ashamed of." So the following Monday, she stood in front of the entire firm and told the truth. No excuses, no trembling voice. She confirmed we were together, confirmed we were expecting a child, confirmed that what happened with Victor had been a violation of trust, not of ethics. Some people stared, some whispered. But when she finished, a few people began to clap. Then more. It wasn't thunderous. It was steady, and steady felt right. That night, Lena came over for dinner. Jake had insisted on helping me cook. The kitchen was a mess. Flour on the counter, sauce on the stove, laughter in the air. When Lena walked in, Jake ran to her like she had always belonged there. "I saved you a seat," he said. She looked surprised. "Did you?" "Yeah, Daddy says families sit together." I saw the way that word settled into her. Family. After dinner, Jake showed her his newest drawing. This time there were 4 stick figures. 2 tall, 2 small. "Who's that?" Lena asked gently, pointing to the tiny one beside her. "That's the baby," Jake said matter-of-factly. "She's in your tummy right now." Lena blinked. She asked. "I think so," he shrugged. "She feels like a sister." We hadn't even told him yet. Later, after Jake fell asleep, Lena and I sat on the couch in the quiet living room. "I don't want to keep living in 2 separate worlds," she said softly. "Meaning?" "Meaning, I want to try, not just co-parenting, not just logistics. I want to see if this can be more." The air between us shifted, not rushed, not dramatic, just honest. "I've been scared to say that," I admitted. After Emma, I thought loving someone again meant risking that kind of loss all over. And now I think not loving at all would be the bigger loss. She reached for my hand. "I don't know how to do this perfectly," she said. "Neither do I. But I know I don't want to do it alone anymore." That was enough. The house we eventually found wasn't grand. It had a squeaky porch step and a backyard that needed work. But Jake claimed a corner for a treehouse before we'd even signed the papers. When our daughter arrived a few months later, she came loud and strong and determined. We named her Emma Grace, not to replace what was lost, but to honor it. The first night we brought her home, I stood in the hallway listening to both my children breathe. Jake in his room, Emma in the nursery, Lena leaned against my shoulder. We built this, she whispered. Not perfectly, not easily, but intentionally. And as I watched the woman I once feared was too strong to let anyone in, rock our daughter with tears in her eyes, I realized something simple. Life doesn't always come the way you planned it. Sometimes it knocks gently. Sometimes it shatters the door. But if you're brave enough to close it, turn back around, and choose to stay, you might just find yourself standing inside something better than you ever imagined. If this story stayed with you, stay close. There's always another quiet moment waiting here with us.